and welcome back to another Pen Talk. Thank you very much for tuning in and exploring with me the amazing, incredible, wide world of pens. And yes, we see a cigar box, a very classic container that sometimes may have pens in it, and this one does. Unlike my first pens in a box, which actually were pens in a box that I had put away many years ago, I went down to a box in my basement and had some pens in it, and about 30 pens. I picked out these 10 pens and 2 extra ones. So let's take a look at them. I think we can tell a very good story with each of these pens, but other than that, I'm going to offer to you, my viewers, to select one of the 10 of these fountain pens that you would like to see me restore. And then I will randomly pick one of those viewers, and they will get a gift sent to them. We will look at these individually, but this is an orange metal pen. This is a plastic pen, has a broken clip. Here's a nice small pen, but has a nice nib. Here's that octagonal pen, or sextagonal. Here's 2 pens that look very similar, and they are. These 2 pens also share a filling system in common, which you might not expect. Here's a Salz, which is a very common 4th tier vintage pen. Here's a Wearever. Very colorful pens, very interesting to look at. And here's a very early ballpoint and a very, very sturdy mechanical pencil. I'm not certain what that age is. This one has absolutely no identification whatsoever. So let's look at these individually and discuss their stories. So all these pens I would call in an as-found condition. I probably paid a few pennies for them, maybe $1. If we look at this one, we'll see it's an Eagle Pencil Company. So that's a clip that's been put onto this orange metal pen, and we'll say, gee, is the filler lever missing? And I'll say no. This was a filler system designed to be operated by a coin that you would use to press down on the bar, which would compress the sac, and when you released it, it would open up the sac and pull up ink, and it appears that the sac is still in good condition. The cap has a very loose fit, and if we look inside, we'll see a classic design. Again, Eagle Pencil Company, so a small section. I would say this pen has never been inked. Interesting carving on that feed system. Just a gold-plated steel nib. Let's give it the thumb test. Nah, I wouldn't call it flexible. It opens up a little bit. Heart-shaped breather hole. Very classic, probably early 1900s. I doubt if it was any later than the 1920. So that's the first pen we're going to look at. So we have pen number 2. Very interesting plastic barrel. Probably a rolled sheet. As you can see, they put black ends to finish it off. Unfortunately, the clip has been broken off. But we do see PORS, which we can use to identify the pen. The other interesting marking is that the lever is said made in Japan. The cap unscrews. Now, a lot of turns, and we'll see something that makes this pen unique. It has a glass nib, a vintage pen with a glass nib and a lever filler. Very interesting combination. SPORS was a Japanese pen company that did make a lot of these pens. I found some examples for sale on eBay and company. So this one may take a little bit of work. That sac is pretty calcified. That lever doesn't move. I'm never going to force it. So that's pen number 2. Pen number 3, I think will clean up very nicely. There's a lot of corroded oxidation on it. Yeah, whatever plating was on there is long gone, but you polish it up and it'll look nice. Top finial is also a little bit toasty, but these bands are in very good shape. And so is the lever. Nice kind of Art Deco design on the lever. Nothing but a little conical end at the barrel. So we take off the cap of this small pen. It just takes about 1 turn to get it off, and we'll see a small nib. But what makes it nice is it's an 18 karat gold nib. 18 karat was generally made with pens in Europe, and I may have bought this during my many trips over there. I went to the flea market in Paris a number of times, and also Petticoat Lane in London. And we see fabrication in Français, so that is definitely a French pen, and it's a Bayard pen. So we'll do some investigation. Talk about what we've learned about Bayard. So Bayard was a French pen maker that started in the 20s and survived into the 60s until a lot of pen makers went out of business. And what's nice is below that, written in French, is the pen without reproach. So that's an interesting phrase and saying. They're known for making decent pens. I would say they're in the league of, Parker and Schaefer in the United States. And obviously we need to do the thumb test and see how that 18 karat nib has some nice flex to it. This pen will clean up great. I may decide to restore it depending upon my mood. So here we are with pen number 4, and it's from the same company that made our earlier metal pen in this group, the Eagle Pencil Company in New York. And this has been patented, looks like 1890, so this has been around for a while. And one of the things we'll notice is a pull-off cap. Slides off pretty nice, but that nib is toast. Not fixable. I think ink has done a number on it. Could have been dropped on the floor a couple times. If we open it up, we'll see that there's just nothing there on the inside. Oh, there is a glass cartridge. I'm impressed. So that really dates the pen probably to the early 1900s. This would not be an easy pen to restore, that's for certain. But you may say, I'm familiar looking design, and here it is as a Kaweco version of it. So interesting how designs have survived for over a century. So we're going to look at these two pens together. They're branded on the clip as Nassau. Somewhat related to Morrison pens. Interesting M there. Logo at the top of the clip. Very similar resin. In very similar condition. Both lever fill and have a similar designed lever. One has a cap band, one doesn't. It just has a little groove there. I don't think there was ever a band on it. So let's look at this one first. We'll take off the cap. Takes a little over 2.5 turns and we'll see a toasty little nib. I think we've had a lot of ink corrosion there. Quite evident on the back side. Classic, very tiny section. And I think it's his gold plate there. Let's see if this will come out. Yeah, it's a little loose. Not going to happen over the camera. Slightly smaller. And if we unscrew this cap, comes off in a similar 2.5 turns, and we'll see no nib. Certain to be easy to find a nib to fit to this pen. A classic dual fold design on both of these with black finials top and bottom. Let's see if this section comes out. Nah, it'll come out, but not something we're going to do over the camera. So this one would require a nib. This one would probably require a nib. I mean, I'd clean up that nib and see if it's usable, but it's a very good examples of Tier 4 type of pens from the 30s/40s, made in the United States. This is pen number 7. Very nice resin. Good feel in the hand. Hopefully you can see that little line there that goes through that breather hole. This is a rolled celluloid sheet that was rolled into a tube, and they did fashion ends on it that work well on both ends. They always came up with a pattern in the sheets that allowed them to roll it, which made it look like it was a solid piece of material, but it's not. And this has a branding on it. It's a Walcraft pen. New York, New York, made in USA. In case there was any misunderstanding where New York, New York was. Cap comes off in less than one turn, and we'll see a really tiny little nib. It's a number 2 nib. So it's an interesting one. Very small ebonite feed, classic section. I think this pen is unused. There's no ink residue anywhere. You find corrosion, but that's typical of a pen that's almost 100 years old. Lever fill. Nah, that sack is pretty calcified, so we're not going to push it. But I do like that look. Very similar to like the Waterman's number 3 pen when they started doing some interesting celluloid colors. So this is pen number 8. It's a Waltham. Your classic pearl and black celluloid resin. Black finials, top and bottom. Fair amount of corrosion. There's a missing cap band there. No lever though, but you do see a seam there. So let's unscrew the back. A little squeaky there, a little silicone grease would fix that. And we'll see a plunger. So let's take off the cap. Less than one turn, we'll see a nice ink window. So the plunger seems to, there it is, it moves up and down. I'm certain those seals are probably gone. And we'll see a duo way 14 karat gold plated steel nib. That branding there is quite known for some people in the vintage pen market. So Waltham was a name used by the Star Pen Company, which also took over Conklin when Conklin had some issues. I placed this pen in late 20s, early 30s. Just an interesting example of a vintage pen, again in the lower tier. So this pen is number 9 in the group. It has a very distinguished cap there. And this is a Salz pen made by the Salz brothers. This also has a decent amount of corrosion. I'm certain this is a rolled celluloid sheet like we found on the Waltham. But again, no lever, but we see a seam. And if we unscrew this huge blind cap, we'll see, another piston plunger. Interesting how this design was common back in the 30s, but didn't really survive that much, and somehow has made it an appearance again recently. I have made a few reviews on these pens, Pen B PBS 500. Cap comes off in about 2 turns, and we'll see a warranted 14K nib, your classic ebonite feed, no ink window in this one. So let's see how that nib writes, and it's not as soft as the Bayard nib. There's a little bit of flex, but not much. So that's a Salz pen. The Salz brothers had a very colorful past. Here's some examples of what went on when the brothers were shot. Looks like they were in the pen business basically to try to make money. which they may not have done well at. So no looking at Tier 3 or Tier 4 vintage pens without having a Wearever in the group. This is a beautiful look. I love the vertical stripes. You know, that was common. Parker was putting it in their dual folds. It's a lever fill, and the trim has survived quite well. Black finials top and bottom. Cap comes off in about 1 3/4 turns. That's not a good sign. Yeah, the nib's a little bit corroded, but it is branded. I have a feeling this pen has also never been inked. There's just a lot of wear and tear, maybe inked once, but not a lot. And the lever has some movement to it, and that sack might have some life left in it. Again, not something I'm going to take apart right now. But this is a classic design. That section's a little bit bigger than some of the other vintage that we looked at, so this may place it in the late 30s more than towards the earlier 20s, because I think that smaller section was more for the 20s. Let's look at fountain pens in my box. So let's take a look at the ballpoint and pencil next. Let's take a look at this pen first. It's a Norman G USA. This has been through the ringer, but it has that patina of age, which I think is great. A little interesting the way that clip is designed there. And yes, it's a ballpoint. This is a company that was very popular in the mid to late 40s when ballpoints were just making their inroads into the marketplace. And this is a very sturdy design. This end unscrews is what you would expect. It's a very strong spring there. And there's a refill. Interesting refill. I don't know whether they made their own or used another company's one, but that way it's done there at the end is just a little bit strange. But certainly a substantial pen. One that you could carry around with you. I don't know, this was before I think the retractable system became popular. Carrying that around in your pocket with the end exposed may not be the best thing to do. So last but not least is this completely unbranded metal pencil, but not very heavy. And as you turn this bottom part, it feels like it's working. Takes out large lead. And sometimes this top part unscrews and you have an eraser. Nice functional clip. Well, that I just sprung. Nope, so much for that. We can spring that back. But this is just another, I think, classic example of the types of writing instruments that were around many, many years ago. I placed this in the same, could be 30s, 40s, no later than the 40s, in the same type as the Norman G. Just to show you, I was able to push this clip back down, so now it's functional again. It's just easy to spring. And yes, the filling mechanism in that pencil does work. There's that little propeller that propels the lead out, so when you retract it all the way, you can insert a lead in there and it'll be a working pencil. Just want to let you know that this is fully functional after many, many decades since it's been first made. So we've reached kind of the end, as we have two spectators here. I put links to various articles on the various pens that I discussed. I also numbered the pens in the video description. So when you comment, let me know what pen you would like to see me restored, and we'll do a vote, and I'll count them up and find out which pen wins the voter's choice for me to restore. No writing in this video, but there will be writing when I do restore one of the pens. I hope this video finds all of you safe, healthy, and happy, enjoying your pens, whether they're old or whether they're new, enjoying writing, enjoying sharing ideas and thoughts, even if it's just to yourself to read later. So we've reached the end of this video. Thank you all for watching, and we're going to say bye until the next one.